Hi there, and welcome to this 6-month summary of my solar production. Now, normally every month I do a month-on-month rundown of what the solar panels have produced and what I've spent, but I decided to sort of put the whole 6 months together and look at it as a summer period, what it really was, from April to September in 2022. So I'm going to go through and have a look at each month in turn, and then towards the end of the video I'm going to put some numbers into Excel and sort of sum everything up and find out how much I've actually saved since I've had solar panels. So before we get into the stats, let's remind ourselves of my solar panel setup. So 14 Jinko 390 watt panels, totaling 5.4 kilowatts, 10 on the south and 4 on the east, and a SolarEdge 4 kilowatt inverter. On the battery side, we've got the 3 kilowatt AC inverter and the 8 kilowatt Gen 1 Give Energy battery. And then of course I've got a few extra bits and bobs, such as the MyEnergy Eddy heating the hot water, the Harvey and the Hub, and the Hypervolt EV charger. So these are the 6 months that we're talking about, April to September. The installation was in March, so that's why that's not a full month, and October's only just started. So through the months, we kind of started with 730 in April, 738 in May, 783, 785, 783. So the June and July and August months were very similar, and then a drop in September to 530. So a total of 4,351 kilowatt hours over the last 6 months. So I'd say the summer months were all kind of very similar, with April, May being at a similar level, and then June, July and August being really similar. And then obviously we came down in September, just due to lack of light or the days being shorter as well. So how do we use all this electricity? Well, this is the Hypervolt graph from the Hypervolt dashboard. In April we used 30 kilowatt hours, May just 11, and then June 11 as well, and July 25. And then August was a big month, 110, in which I did do some overnight charging in that month. And then September back down again to 40.8. So 228.82 kilowatt hours of charging, with I would say 80% of that being kind of solar power, with it being kind of dribbled into the cars through the solar panels during the day. Now I can't actually show you the Eddy graph data because the system won't let me look at the last kind of 6 months. I think I'd have to go into the API or something for that, but I basically have pulled it out. So we didn't have it in April, so we got 0, and then I installed it in May to heat the hot water with 159 kilowatt hours, then 138, 83 in July, I think that's because we went on holiday, and then 108 in August and 107 in September. So kind of similar months, but obviously August and September there was less probably going into it because there was just less solar, and I was charging the battery first in August and September as opposed to heating the hot water first that I did in May and June. So other than heating the hot water and charging the car a little bit, most of the power either went into the house or of course into the battery. So I wanted to show you this graph from the Give Energy dashboard. This is basically showing over the months how much solar power we put in the battery and how much grid power we put in the battery as well. So it's starting from June because the battery wasn't installed until about the second week in June. So I've only got kind of 4 months data for this. We shouldn't be looking at October yet. So June to September really. So you can see how I didn't use any grid power at all in June, July during the summer, as you'd probably expect. Although I used a little bit in August, when some days were kind of overcast and I wanted to pre-charge the battery a little bit, and that was kind of me messing about with the battery percentages that I wanted to kind of work out how it worked. And then in September we used a little bit more grid power as well, mainly because obviously, you know, the days were getting shorter and we had some grey days, and I wanted to make sure that we had enough power in the battery to last us through the day, or could work out how much solar power we needed to top up the battery to 100% during the day. So I kind of varied those percentages that I topped it up by. So this is how much grid electricity I used, and this is taken from the Octopus control panel. So in April we used 166 kilowatt hours, and May 173 kilowatt hours. Reason was because we only had solar panels then and not the battery in the first 2 months. And then May obviously came down because we'd actually got the battery then, so we were using less electricity until it went really low in July, and then September, August was low as well obviously, and then September came up a little bit more, mainly because again I was using a little bit more grid power overnight to pre-charge the batteries. So living without the battery for a couple of months at the beginning, was great, but obviously we had to lose any benefits once the sun had gone down, and we had no battery for the first couple of months, but after that it was brilliant. So after all that use, we did actually export and make some money back. So 246 in May, 246 kilowatt hours in May, and then 287 kilowatt hours in June. That's when the battery turned up. And then July, 288 kilowatt hours, obviously peak summertime. And August, 156 kilowatt hours, so dropping now. And then finally September, just 51 kilowatt hours. So, I mean, the reason really for that is the battery didn't turn up till early June. Obviously summertime, I didn't have an EV then, so any power would then sort of be going out of the door once the battery and the hot water was kind of topped up. And then August dropped a bit more. I started to use a bit more in the car, top the car up a little bit. And then September, there just wasn't much export about as we got into the kind of autumn months, really. But what we'll do is now we'll have a look at those figures in depth instead of just kind of flashing through them. And then we'll see how much electricity I kind of used and how much money I've saved, really. Let's have a look. So here's just a summary of the figures that I've shown you already, with the solar production numbers in kilowatt hours in yellow for April to September. And then the eddy column, obviously didn't have it in April, so that was 0. Installed it for beginning of May. So there the numbers going down in the pinkish colour. And then next to that is the Hypervolt EV charger, the amount of kilowatt hours we used from that to put into the car. I say mainly from solar panel, and mainly from solar power, except for a bit of August, which was a bit higher, which I think I did a little bit of overnight charging. And then the grid to the battery, obviously didn't have the battery until June, so that's why there's zeros in the April and May columns, and same for the solar 2 battery. And I've put a few notes in the right hand side. So April we didn't have the battery, we weren't signed up to SEG, and we had no eddy to heat the hot water. And in May we were on SEG and had an eddy, but we didn't have a battery. And then in June we had the battery for 3 weeks, and then in August we decided to join Octopus Go. And you can probably see why, because in the grid to battery column in August and September after that we started to fill the battery a little bit overnight from Octopus Go. That was the reason really for joining it in August, to get ready for the winter. So in this section we've got the power that we imported from the grid in kilowatt hours in red, and then I've got a breakdown of that, of how much of that power was from daytime and how much was from nighttime and the costs. So as I said, in April and May we didn't have a battery, so we only had panels. So we used to use quite a bit of electricity in the evenings when there was no sun. So that's why you can see values there, higher kilowatt values in April and May. And then in June, I think battery was installed in, say, the second week of June. So we did use a little bit of power for the first week or so of June. And then you can see in July it really dropped off to 11. And then 9 and 8, and that was daytime rates because of the sort of trickle of ramping up and ramping down of the battery and things like that. So the daytime costs in that was about £40 a month for April, 50 for May, and then it went down to 21, and then 3, 3 and 3 for July, August and September. Nighttime power, well, we didn't use any because we weren't on Octopus Go, but we joined Octopus Go in late July, beginning of August. So that's why you're then seeing some nighttime power as I started to pre-charge the battery, as I've said before. And the nighttime cost was £5.59 for August and £6.50 for September. And don't forget the solar exporting as well, which I've kind of already mentioned. In total, we didn't obviously export anything in April because we weren't signed up for SEG. That took several weeks. And if you want to see a video on how to go about that with Octopus, then check out this video showing above now, and I'll also put it in the description. And then when we did start exporting, we exported a fair bit in May, June and July, and then as I had an EV, as I said in August, I didn't export much, and as the weather got worse in September, we didn't export much either. Very little monetary value, but overall for those months, £70. And don't forget, I was on what was it? It's 15p now. I was on 7.5 pence export up until I joined Octopus Go, and then that dropped to 4.1 pence per kilowatt hour to export. That's why those figures, those values dropped as well. So overall, the monthly costs for the first 2 months were quite high because obviously we only had panels and no battery. So £48 in April, £31 in May, and then 17 pence in June because obviously that good export rate. And then £18 was the cost in July. Oh, sorry, £18 in July was profit because we did such good exporting and little use, because then we had the battery for the first full month. And then we just only spent £2 and £7 respectively in August and September as well after we joined Octopus Go. So in total, £72.53 for the 6 months, not including standing charge. So what about savings? Well, the solar production values are in yellow per kilowatt hours. Now, if I'd have purchased all of those at the price cap price of 29 pence, then I would have basically saved myself £1,262. But you produce more than you really use. That wouldn't be what I would have normally used. So let's have a look at what my typical usage was before I had the panels installed. So a typical day for me before solar panels was 14 kilowatt hours per day. Based on the number of days in the month, it can vary a little bit, but say 420 and 434 kilowatt hours per month, which equates to around £120 based on that 29 pence kilowatt hour rate that was the price cap rate. But if I add on the kind of hot water gas costs, because obviously I'm using the Eddy now to heat my hot water, and previously I would have used the boiler, I would have saved about £192 over that 6 months in gas costs based on a 7p price cap per kilowatt hour of gas. And I worked that out based on previous summers when I would have used the gas boiler from statements from Scottish Power. Sort of worked out about £1 a day, I think, to heat the hot water. So a savings from the electricity, £742.98, and then the savings from the gas, £192.15, give us a total saving of £935.13 for the 6 months. Yes, I did spend about £70 on electricity, but they were mainly in the first 2 months when I didn't have the battery. So if the battery was installed from day one, or if it was a normal 6 months in the summer, and I had the battery, then I think I would have saved still around £1,000. But unfortunately, the winter is not the same as the summer, so we can't just double that number and get to £2,000 saving for the year. So we'll have to see what happens in the next 6 months to then see how much I've saved in the first 12 months. Well done if you've made it this far through the video. That was my first 6 months, about £1,000 savings. Quite happy with it. Very happy with the actual install and the setup of panels. Would not go back now to not having solar panels and a battery. No way on earth. So thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll speak to you soon.